Hello, my dear masterminds. They always act like loyalty is the rule, until they see where you really come from. That's when the whole energy flips. That's when the smiles tighten, the voices crack, the room suddenly feels too crowded for the truth standing inside it. See? They were comfortable when they thought you were just another face in the background, just another story that wouldn't go anywhere, just another quiet soul they could predict, manage, or ignore. But the second they figured out what shaped you, the second they realized the weight behind your silence, the reason behind your eyes, the inner drive behind your patience, everything changed. People switch up fast when they realize your roots run deeper than their excuses. When they sense that your past isn't a weakness, it's a whole bloodline of strength, discipline, grit, scars, victories, lessons, and quiet storms of experience that trained you long before they ever entered your life. You didn't just come from somewhere. You came through things they could never handle. You rose through nights they would have folded in. You walked roads they couldn't last 5 minutes on. And when they saw that, when they finally understood what molded you, when they realized the story behind your composure, they didn't know if they should respect you, admire you, or get out of your way. They switched up because they saw the truth. You're not built like them. You don't weaken like them. You don't complain like them. You don't crumble at the first sign of a burden like them. You're carved from something older, something heavier, something sacred. Your origins are a pillar of strength they never expected. Your history is a crown they never saw coming. And your rise, that's the part that shakes them the most. Not because you're loud, not because you're reckless, but because you move with a calm that only comes from rising through too many heavy moments and learning you don't have to announce thunder. You just let it roll. They switched up when they realized your presence isn't an accident. Your strength isn't a phase. Your glow isn't luck. You are the product of trials. They don't have the spine to face, and the moment they figured that out, they didn't know how to treat you anymore. Should they congratulate you? Should they apologize? Should they distance themselves? Should they keep you close? Should they pretend they never doubted you? Should they pretend they always supported you? They don't know, because people who switch up always move in confusion when truth walks in, wearing your face. But you didn't flinch. You didn't chase. You didn't correct anyone. You didn't explain your origin story. You just kept walking. Because real power doesn't pause to clear misunderstandings. Real power doesn't beg to be recognized. Real power doesn't ask permission to exist. You let their switch up expose them and reveal you. They didn't switch up because you changed. They switched up because they finally noticed what was always there. They misread your silence as softness. They mistook your patience for weakness. They confused your calm with lack of depth. They thought you were standing still while you were actually studying everything. Their patterns, their habits, their intentions, their tells. You were watching the whole play unfold while they believed they were the main characters. But the moment they caught a glimpse of what you truly carry inside you, every assumption they ever made about you collapsed on the spot. Because people who underestimate you can only do it from a distance. Once they get close enough to witness who you really are, their whole narrative shatters. And that's what happened. Your background wasn't just a place. It was a training ground. Every tough moment sharpened you. Every loss refined you. Every act of disloyalty recalibrated you. You didn't grow up with a safety net. You grew up with instincts. You learned how to read people before they said a word. You learned how to rise using things they'd take for granted. You learned how to rebuild yourself with resources they wouldn't even recognize as resources. When they realized that, when they saw the depth behind your strength, when they finally understood that your resilience wasn't random, it was earned, they had no choice but to switch up. It's funny, they only trusted you when they assumed you were beneath them. They only felt safe when they thought you were harmless. But when the truth surfaced, when they saw the weight of your lineage, when they sensed the power of your mindset, their comfort evaporated, because now they weren't dealing with the version of you they created in their imagination. They were dealing with the real one. And the real you doesn't move like someone who's trying to fit in. The real you moves like someone who's been through enough to know exactly where they stand. You didn't grow through privilege. You grew through burden. You didn't inherit ease. You inherited grit. And that kind of origin intimidates people who've only risen because life went easy on them. They switched up because deep down, they know you didn't have the luxury to be soft. You had to toughen up early. You had to mature fast. You had to see truth before you were ready. And now that you've stepped into your power, they're realizing something they weren't prepared for. Your past didn't weaken you. It built you. That's why the energy changed. That's why the tone shifted. That's why the room got quiet. They finally understand you're not one of them. You're not from where they're from. You don't think like they think. You don't fear what they fear. Your story wrote a different kind of spirit inside you, and their world can't process that truth. But you've been ready for this moment your entire life. You ever notice how the air changes when people finally understand who they're actually dealing with? It's subtle at first. The pauses get longer, the tone gets softer, the questions get more careful. They start watching you the way someone watches a storm. They underestimate it, because that's exactly what happened the moment they realized where you come from. They thought you were made in the same environment they were, until your presence exposed the truth. You weren't built in comfort. You were built in conditions that forced evolution. Conditions that don't create average people. Conditions that forge something rare. That's when the switch-up starts. They don't pull away because you did something wrong. They pull away because your existence reminds them that their version of challenge was a warm-up compared to your daily reality. Your upbringing wasn't a setback. It was a blueprint. It crafted your instincts, sharpened your focus, and wired your mind for survival, strategy, and self-respect. And once people sense that, they stop treating you like someone they can play with. They stop assuming you're easy to read. They stop believing you're predictable. The truth is, they were comfortable with the watered-down version of you, the quiet one, the observing one, the one who didn't show everything at once. But comfort is built on ignorance, and ignorance collapses fast. Because the moment they witnessed even a glimpse of your strength, their entire approach shifted. Suddenly, the same people who were loud became quiet. The same people who thought they knew you started second-guessing themselves. The same people who tried to test you began avoiding situations that would put them in your path again. It wasn't your success that shook them. It was your foundation. Anyone can rise. Anyone can glow up. Anyone can improve. But not everyone can rise through what you rose through and still stand tall. Not everyone can stay sane through the heavy moments you walked through. Not everyone can carry the weight you've carried and still move with grace. And that's what unsettled them. Your story isn't convenient. It's not cute. It's not polished. It's real. It's raw. It's full of trials that would have overwhelmed them. And when people realize you emerged from all of that, the respect becomes involuntary. You want to know the real reason they switched up. Because deep down, they know you're not just progressing, you're transforming. They know you're not just leveling up, you're evolving. They know they'd lose every time if they ever tried to match you in endurance, in discipline, in resilience, in intuition. You weren't raised to be average. You weren't shaped by ease. You were shaped by truth, by loss, by burden, by environments that demanded strength even on days you had nothing left. So of course they switched up. Of course they became distant. Of course their energy changed. They saw your origin story. They realized what molded you. And they finally understood. You're not someone they can replace. You're not someone they can copy. You're not someone they can calculate. You're someone they should have never underestimated. You know what really shook them? It wasn't your confidence. It wasn't your silence. It wasn't even your progress. It was the moment they realized your strength wasn't something you picked up recently. It was something you were raised in, something you were born from, something they can't fake, can't copy, can't train for. That's when their whole attitude shifted, because people love to judge the surface until they find out what built the foundation. And your foundation, that's where their fear starts. They thought you came from the same comfort zones they did. They thought your calmness meant softness. They thought your quiet energy meant inexperience. They thought your patience meant weakness. But when they finally saw the environment you rose through, when they realized the pressure you grew up under didn't weaken you, it sculpted you. That's when everything inside them flipped. Suddenly, the way they talk to you changes. Suddenly, the way they approach you changes. Suddenly, they stop making jokes that cross the line, because now they know the line was never safe for them in the first place. People switch up fast when they discover where your strength was born, because it reminds them of everything they never had to face. They grew in places where challenge was optional. You grew in places where challenge was oxygen. They learned how to avoid discomfort. You learned how to move through it. They learned how to pretend. You learned how to endure. They learned how to talk. You learned how to observe. And when someone carries that kind of experience quietly, it makes others nervous, because they can't measure you anymore. That's what gets them, not your attitude, not your confidence, not your success. It's the mystery behind you, the depth inside you, the history behind your eyes. They realize you didn't just rise through things. You adapted to them. You learned from them. You carried them like training weights. And those same weights that would have overwhelmed them, they made you sharper. They made you strategic. They gave you instincts that can sense disloyalty before it shows up, sense weakness before it speaks, sense intentions before they form. That's the part they don't talk about. That's the part they pretend not to notice. But their energy reveals them every time, because once they understand you come from a lineage of mental, spiritual, and emotional fighters, they stop treating you like someone they can outmaneuver. They stop trying to box you in. They stop trying to outsmart you. You can't outsmart someone who lived through heavy moments you've only read about. You can't intimidate someone whose early life trials were heavier than your adult fears. You can't shake someone who had to build their own stability, piece by piece, with no blueprint, no safety net, no applause. So yes, they switched up. Because once the truth about your past surfaced, they saw the part of you they were never supposed to see. The part that didn't just rise through everything. The part that evolved. The part that rewired itself. The part that turned pain into power. And now they understand exactly why you walk the way you walk, move the way you move, and rise the way you rise. You don't come from weakness. You come from fire, and inner fire changes everything. And here's the wildest part. The moment they realized where you come from, they suddenly remembered who they themselves are. And that's why their behavior flipped so fast. It wasn't you that unsettled them, it was the reflection. Because when someone stands next to real strength, fake confidence fades, loud mouths go quiet, ego collapses into confusion, and every mask they ever wore slips. They didn't switch up because you changed. They switched up because the truth exposed them. You didn't grow from comfort. You didn't grow from applause. You didn't grow from easy seasons. You grew from places where you had to learn how to breathe, even when the world felt like it was pulling you down. You grew from situations that demanded maturity before childhood even finished. You grew from environments where emotions weren't luxuries, they were liabilities. And that kind of background produces a different breed of human. Not cold, not numb, just aware, sharply aware, hyper-aware. The kind of awareness that makes manipulators panic and pretenders run out of moves. That's why they switched up. They realized your quiet isn't emptiness, it's calculation. Your kindness isn't softness, it's restraint. Your respect isn't obedience, it's discipline. Your distance isn't confusion, it's clarity. You understand people too well. You see through lies too fast. You sense shifts too early. You predict outcomes too accurately. And the scary part for them, you do all of this silently. They used to think they had the advantage because you didn't react. But your silence wasn't proof of weakness. It was proof of mastery. While they were busy trying to read you, you were reading the entire room. While they were trying to judge you, you were mapping every intention. While they were trying to test you, you were watching their patterns glitch. And once someone realizes you're the one who sees the whole board, they stop treating you like a pawn, because you come from a background that didn't teach you how to survive. It taught you how to anticipate, how to prepare, how to adapt before the chaos even arrives. And that terrifies people who only learned how to look sharp, not how to stay sharp. So when they finally understood the mindset you were raised in, boom, their confidence evaporated, their tone changed, their strategy collapsed, their whole identity got scrambled because they finally understood the truth. You weren't built in the same workshop. You weren't shaped by the same pressure. You weren't designed for the same limits. Your roots go deeper. Your inner fire burns hotter. Your soul sees further. That's why the switch up was instant. Because the second they realized where you come from, they also realized where they can never reach. And that understanding hit them harder than any words ever could. Here's the truth. Nobody around you wants to admit out loud. The switch up didn't happen because of something you did. It happened because of something they discovered. One tiny moment, one slip, one accidental reveal of the real core you carry. And suddenly their whole attitude broke in half. Because people love you when they think they understand you. When they think you come from the same cloth. When they think your limits match theirs. But the moment they realized your upbringing, your roots, your scars, your strength, your intelligence, your intuition, your mindset, all came from a place they've never risen through. They panicked. Now they're overthinking every memory, every conversation, every time they underestimated you, every joke they made about your silence, every plan they tried to run behind your back, because it just hit them. You weren't clueless. You weren't naive. You weren't unaware. You were observant. You were watching. You were collecting data. You were analyzing patterns. You were seeing every tiny crack in their character. And the part that unsettles them the most, you never exposed them. You never confronted them. You never embarrassed them. You just adjusted. That's a powerful ability. Not loud power, not aggressive power, silent power. The kind that only people with depth and history possess. When they realized where you come from, the discipline you learned early, the instincts you built to function, the emotional control you had to master just to stay steady. They understood why their tricks never worked on you, and why you kept rising even when everything tried to pull you down. People from your background don't fold. They don't weaken. They don't crumble. They transform. They adapt. They refine. And that's exactly what you've been doing quietly this whole time. That's why now they treat you differently. They speak softer. They move slower. They watch their tone around you. They choose their words carefully. Because you come from a world where realness isn't an aesthetic. It's a requirement. Where pretending gets exposed instantly. Where manipulation leaves fingerprints. Where people learn early who's genuine and who's performing roles. And compared to that, their entire personality looks flimsy. Their entire strategy looks predictable. Their entire identity looks rehearsed. They switched up the moment they realized your strength wasn't something you learned. It was something you were forged with. And now they understand something they never wanted to face. There's no competing with someone whose background shaped them into the pillar of strength. They only pretend to be. Now they're replaying every time they underestimated you. Every joke, every doubt, every casual disrespect. And it hits them harder each time. They misread the quiet one. They misread the resilient one. They misread the one who held back out of respect, not fear. And here you are, still calm, still grounded, still moving with purpose, still choosing alignment over attention, still letting life speak for you instead of shouting your own name. Because people who know where they come from don't need to prove anything. People who carry real experience don't need applause. People who've stood alone in the trenches don't crave validation. Your presence is the proof. Your energy is the resume. Your evolution is the testimony. And now they switched up because deep inside they know the truth. You're not someone they discovered. You're someone they should have never misjudged. You're not someone who needed their approval. You're someone who was already chosen long before they even knew your name. And the wildest part, you never had to expose them. You never had to clap back. You never had to prove your past. Your growth did the talking. Your results did the talking. Your spirit did the talking. And now they're trying to adjust their behavior to a standard you set without even trying.